My brother got my fiancée pregnant before our wedding. My family wants forgiveness, but I cut ties, cancelled everything, and now, I'm planning my revenge. Hey Reddit, let me start from the beginning. I 29M thought I had my life perfectly figured out. I had a stable job, a loving family, and most importantly, my fiancée, Emma 27F, the woman I believed was my soulmate. We had been together for 5 years, and after 2 years of engagement, we were finally counting down the days to our wedding. Invitations were sent, venues booked, and everything seemed perfect, until my world came crashing down. My brother, Jake 26M, had always been the golden child of the family. Growing up, he was the charming one, the one who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. I was the responsible, quiet sibling who worked hard while Jake coasted through life with his charm and good looks. Despite our differences, I never resented him. I supported him through his struggles and was proud when he finally seemed to be turning his life around. I even gave him the honor of being my best man at the wedding, a decision I would live to regret. About 2 weeks before the wedding, Emma started acting distant. She was always on her phone, smiling at messages she wouldn't share with me. She had late-night work meetings and excuses that didn't quite add up. I chalked it up to wedding stress and didn't push her, wanting to give her space. Little did I know, the truth was uglier than I could have ever imagined. One night, I came home early from work, hoping to surprise Emma with her favorite takeout. When I walked into the apartment, I found her sitting on the couch, looking pale and shaken. Before I could ask what was wrong, she blurted out the words that destroyed me. "I'm pregnant and it's Jake's." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard her. My ears were ringing, my hands shaking, and my vision blurred. She started crying, trying to explain, but her words were like daggers. Emma confessed that it had been a one-time mistake, a drunken lapse in judgment when Jake came over to help her with wedding planning while I was out of town. I couldn't breathe. My own brother, my best man, had betrayed me in the worst way imaginable. The woman I was about to marry had slept with him and was now carrying his child. I felt my entire world collapse. I didn't yell or scream. I just walked out, slamming the door behind me. I drove aimlessly for hours, replaying everything in my head. The betrayal, the lies, the months of planning a future with someone who had shattered my trust. I decided then and there that I couldn't go through with the wedding. The next morning, I called Emma and told her it was over. I canceled the wedding, losing thousands of dollars in deposits, but I didn't care. I blocked her on everything, packed up her belongings, and left them outside my apartment. When I confronted Jake, he didn't even try to deny it. He sat there, smug and unapologetic, saying it just happened and that I needed to get over it. He had the audacity to tell me that family was more important than some girl drama and that I should forgive him for the sake of keeping peace in the family. My parents were no better. When I told them what Jake and Emma had done, they didn't react the way I expected. Instead of siding with me, they downplayed the situation, calling it a mistake and urging me to forgive Jake. They even suggested that I should work things out with Emma because a child deserves a stable family. That was the final straw. I told my family that I was done with them. If they wanted to enable Jake and his behavior, they could do it without me. I cut ties with all of them, packed my bags, and moved to a new city without looking back. But the story doesn't end there. Cutting ties and moving on wasn't enough. The anger, betrayal, and heartbreak still festered inside me. Everywhere I went, I felt the weight of what they had done, and I knew I couldn't let them off so easily. Jake and Emma had destroyed my life, and I wasn't going to let them walk away unscathed. I started gathering information. I found out that Jake's job wasn't as secure as he made it seem and that he was living paycheck to paycheck. Emma, on the other hand, was facing complications with her pregnancy and had been leaning on my parents for financial and emotional support. My parents, ever the enablers, were footing the bill for everything, including her medical expenses. That's when I saw my opportunity. I contacted a lawyer and had them draft a letter to Jake, demanding he repay the thousands of dollars I had lost canceling the wedding. I threatened legal action if he didn't comply. At the same time, I anonymously sent screenshots of Jake's flirty messages with Emma to his workplace, hinting at inappropriate behavior. I don't know if it cost him his job, but I heard through the grapevine that he was struggling even more financially. As for Emma, I made sure to let her family know exactly why the wedding was canceled. I sent them a detailed letter explaining her affair with Jake and how she had betrayed me. Her family, who had always been traditional and proud, was furious. She lost their support and had to move in with Jake and my parents. I wasn't done yet. I started rebuilding my life, making new friends, and focusing on my career. But in the back of my mind, I was always thinking of ways to make them pay. My revenge wasn't just about making them suffer, it was about reclaiming the power they had taken from me. Months later, I heard that Emma had given birth to a baby boy. Jake was struggling to adjust to fatherhood, and my parents were drained financially and emotionally. They reached out to me, begging me to come back and make peace. They wanted me to forgive Jake, be an uncle to his child, and pretend like nothing had happened. I laughed. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of closure. I told them that they had made their choice when they sided with Jake and Emma. Now, they could deal with the consequences. I don't know what the future holds, but one thing is certain: I'm done being the nice guy who lets people walk all over him. They thought they could betray me and move on like nothing happened. They were wrong. I've moved on, but I'll never forget. And as for revenge? Let's just say this story isn't over yet. After cutting ties with my family and exposing the truth about Jake and Emma, I thought I had finally reclaimed control over my life. But peace was short-lived. It turns out, when you dismantle a house of cards, the fallout can be even messier than the betrayal that started it all. A few weeks after I told my family off, I started getting strange messages from unknown numbers. Some were outright threatening, accusing me of breaking up my family, calling me heartless for leaving Emma and my parents to handle her delicate condition. Others were more manipulative, trying to guilt-trip me into coming back. I ignored them, blocking every number that popped up. But then, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Emma. She poured her heart out in the letter, saying she regretted everything and that she still loved me. She begged me to reconsider, claiming that the baby would have a better life if I were in it. She even hinted that she wasn't sure if Jake was the father, leaving the door open for some twisted reunion fantasy. I was furious. She didn't get to shatter my life and then play victim. But something in her letter gave me an idea. If she wasn't sure who the father was, I could use that to my advantage. I called my lawyer and told them I wanted to petition for a paternity test. It wasn't about reconciling, it was about shaking up their lives even more. If the child wasn't Jake's, it would destroy the fragile little world they had built together. If it was Jake's, well, it would confirm just how deep their betrayal ran. The process wasn't easy. Jake and Emma resisted, claiming I had no right to interfere. But legally, I had just enough standing to demand it, thanks to Emma's letter and the timing of everything. Eventually, they caved. The results came back a few weeks later, and guess what? Jake was the father. When I got the results, I made sure to forward them to everyone involved: Emma's family, Jake's workplace, even some mutual friends who had been pestering me to let it go. It was my not-so-subtle way of saying, this is the mess they created, and they can deal with it. Jake lost whatever support he had left. His co-workers started whispering about his personal life, and he was forced to step down from his position due to personal reasons. Emma, already struggling with the stigma of her actions, was ostracized even further. My parents, who had been playing peacemakers, were now drowning in the chaos they had tried to sweep under the rug. But the icing on the cake came when I found out that Jake had been cheating on Emma with another woman. Apparently, he wasn't as committed to their new family as he pretended to be. When Emma found out, she kicked him out of the house, leaving him homeless and broke. Now, Jake is couch surfing with friends who barely tolerate him, and Emma is raising their child alone, relying entirely on my parents for support. The family they fought so hard to defend is now crumbling under the weight of their own lies. As for me, I'm thriving. I've started dating again, focusing on my career, and building a life free from their toxicity. Every now and then, I hear whispers about how they're doing, and I can't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. They wanted forgiveness and a clean slate, but actions have consequences, and they're living with theirs every day. And while I've moved on in many ways, I can't help but wonder if there's one last move I can make to truly close this chapter. Let's just say, I'm keeping my options open. This isn't over. Not yet. It had been months since I last heard from Emma or Jake, but the tension from their betrayal still lingered in the air. My life was on track: new city, new career, and a peace I hadn't felt in years. But deep down, I knew something was still missing. The anger that had once consumed me had faded, replaced by a cold, calculated sense of satisfaction. I had already ruined their lives in ways I never imagined, but there was still one last thing I needed to do to close this chapter. I wasn't just going to walk away and let them fade into the background of my life. They needed to feel the weight of their actions one last time. I began by reaching out to a few key people. I knew the whispers about Jake's personal life were already circulating, but I needed to make sure it reached the people who mattered most, the people who had enabled him and Emma in the first place, my parents. I sent them a series of carefully crafted messages, screenshots of the betrayal, the lies, and the heartache they had caused. I even included a few details about Jake's cheating, showing how the family man persona they'd been defending was a complete lie. It wasn't just about making them feel guilty. It was about making sure they knew the full scope of what had happened, what they had allowed to happen. Then, I took it a step further. I contacted a local news outlet, one that had a reputation for covering stories involving betrayal and scandal. I knew that if I shared Jake's story with them, it would turn into a full-blown media storm. They were more than willing to pick up the story, especially with all the drama surrounding Jake's fall from grace. They published an article, detailing everything from the affair with Emma to his history of dishonesty. They even included quotes from former friends and co-workers who had grown disillusioned with him. By the time the article hit the press, Jake's reputation was in tatters. He couldn't hide from it anymore. The shame was inescapable. And Emma? She wasn't spared either. The article painted her as the woman who had destroyed her own future for a fleeting affair, someone who had shattered not only her relationship with me but also her credibility in the eyes of her friends and family. She had tried to put on a brave face, but the truth was out, and it was too late to fix it. By the time the story was published, both Jake and Emma had lost everything. They were living in the wreckage of their own choices, their names forever linked to the betrayal they thought they could escape from. My parents, meanwhile, were left grappling with the fallout. They had tried to mend things, tried to convince me that family was everything, but now they were part of the mess too. They couldn't hide behind their pleas for forgiveness anymore. The final act of revenge wasn't about retribution anymore, it was about control. I was no longer the person who had been left broken and betrayed. I was the one who had orchestrated their downfall, and it felt damn good. As for me? I've never been better. I've moved on, found peace, and built a life that I'm proud of. And as for Emma, Jake, and my family? They're left to deal with the mess they made, while I keep moving forward. I never needed their forgiveness, and I sure as hell didn't need their approval. In the end, I had something they could never take from me, control of my own life. And that, in itself, was the sweetest revenge. That's all for today's video, folks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time for more exciting content. See you next time.